Banco Beverage. Proudly serving the Lehigh Valley for over 80 years. It's 80 years. Say it with me. 80 years. It's a long time. Over 30 plus breweries distributed, including Miller, Yuengling, Pabst, Guinness, Heineken, plus a generous variety of imported and specialty brands. They are located at Crackersport Road in Allentown, PA. Can't get any more local than that, Lehigh Valley. Banco Beverage is locally owned, operated since 1933. They have an exceptional team of staff dedicated to making their customers happy. If you're interested in having Banco be your purveyor for whatever bar or establishment you own, you can go to www.bancobeverage.com. I have the information in the ads as well, and I want to thank Banco for coming on and being a sponsor. Myself and Tony are working on some projects, and we are going to be bringing some really cool content, as well as Banco is going to be providing for a lot of the things that we do event-wise. So thank you, Banco, again. Thank you, Tony, and check out Banco Beverage. Giacomo's Italian Market. What an awesome relationship that has blossomed between Never Again Studio and Giacomo's Italian Market. We've been working with them with Studio Kitchen. We've been doing their Italian sausage and going to pop-ups with them. I love Sal. I love all the guys over there. It's always awesome collaborating. And you should go check them out. They got specialty Italian items. They're famous for the cheesesteak, the sausage. I can't even list everything because everything over there on that menu is fantastic. It's a home run. They are in Easton, PA, 700 Cattell Street. That's 700 Cattell Street in Easton, PA. They are over by College Hill. It's a dope area to check out. You need to go there. They got plenty of inside seating. They got all kinds of specialty Italian things off to the side, of pasta, vodka sauce. I usually just go there because I'm not making it as good as Sal. So I pick up my vodka sauce and, I say, what's up? We got some oils and all kinds of different things. But I can't say nothing but positive things over at Giacomo's. If you know them, you know them. If you don't know them, you're crazy and you need to get over there. That's 700 Cattell Street in Easton. That's Giacomo's Italian Market. Tell Sal what's up. The Curious Plantaholic, located in Nazareth and Clinton, New Jersey. The Nazareth location was opened first, and I met Jenny. We immediately hit it off. I knew we would start working on projects. She is the energy and the breath of fresh air that Nazareth needs. I started buying plants off of her, went down a rabbit hole. Now I got a bunch of plants I got to take care of. I'm trying my hardest. People are helping me. What an awesome shop for plants, retail. The energy in there is amazing. The employees in there are amazing. It's a plant and supply store focused on connecting with local communities, and boy, do they do a fantastic job at that. I can't say enough about these guys. You need to go to their locations and check them out, but they also have plants for sale online. It's securiousplantaholic.com, and right now they have two locations, which is Nazareth, and the other one is Clinton, New Jersey. Please check them out, and you can get more information at curiousplantaholic.com. I'm going to be working with Jenny on some other projects as well, so you will see us kind of creating a vibe and some things going on in Nazareth. We're really going to help kind of revitalize and get some things going on in Nazareth. So if you want to, please check out the Curious Plantaholics in Nazareth. Support local, support us. They support the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on as a sponsor. Off here or anything?
No, it's okay. I'm fine with here.
All right, Never Again Radio. I have no clue what fucking episode this is. Welcome to Never Again Radio. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you driving in here. And then you were like, I need food. I need a snack. And I was like, oh my God, are you diabetic? Is this girl going to pass out? And you're like, I haven't eaten today. So then I do like when people, I can give them a little taste of Nazareth. So we went down to Wrestlers, which is a corner store.
So cute.
Yeah, it's I grew up with stores like that around here, which I didn't realize is like not common for some people, but there's another one, Kate's Corner down that way, and there's another one this way, and they all have awesome little things, but it's like little shops where they make sandwiches. And because back in the day, before like Wegmans and big stores took over, like if you lived in a neighborhood, you could go to that corner store for like your milk and your eggs, and like they lived off of that. It was a little bit of an upcharge, but you didn't have to drive all the way out to the store.
Yeah, I wish I had that near me.
Lottery tickets, cigarettes. That was what we used to try and buy cigarettes
Meat
when we were
sticks.
kids. Yes, meat sticks as well. We started kind of talking before the show. I kind of want to get into how you started your apparel business. Where did apparel start for you, and kind of like where did art become like a major part of your life?
Yeah. So I feel like it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah. Can you pull the mic a little bit closer?
Yeah.
Perfect. And down a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I just don't want to block your face.
Yeah.
There,
that's fine.
perfect. You're like, hide me. Can you change the way I look, please?
You did say that.
Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. One of my 4 liquids here.
Yeah. I've never. I'm used to being the person consuming a ton of liquids. Today it was you.
Yeah. Water, coffee, Coke.
Tall boy of Coke.
Tall boy of Coke.
Yeah, and
And a Miller
High
High
Life.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. The essentials.
Yeah. I think that's like the top of the food pyramid, and everything comes below it.
I'm on an all liquid diet. But I remember being like really young, being at my Nana's house. She'd always have on shows, and I remember this one. It was like this crazy guy with a big pencil, but it was like, I guess it was a kid's show. It was called Pappy's.
Yeah.
That he would just go and
I feel like that's local to where you live.
Is it?
I don't know. I never heard of Pappy's.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. But that was back when TV was like Bob Ross and probably like, I remember Bill Cosby used to do picture pages when I was growing up. Stupid
Yeah.
shit like that.
So, yeah,
There
stuff
used to
like
be
that.
programs like that where they would teach you how to draw.
Yeah, it
Very
would just
similar to where
be-
I said like the cooking channels used to be, here's how you cook. Now it's just like grocery
how
games.
to. Yeah. But yeah, it would just be like, I don't know if it was step by step, but just simple drawings and stuff. And I always remember like loving watching that. And like she had books where it was like step by step how to draw a frog.
Yeah.
Like
You
stupid
used to be able to get
stuff
that
like
shit from the library.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, I always done that. Like that was my favorite activity, like just being young. And then never really realizing that I liked art. I thought that was just normal. Like, I mean, it is normal. But like, I was really interested in it. And then throughout school, like middle school, high school, I definitely was attracted to being creative and always drawing.
How was the art program in school?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like our art program was probably similar where it was like, I mean, we have kids in there who aren't interested in art, and then they're trying to teach kids, and then I feel like the teacher would just kind of work with the 1 or 2 kids that really knew what they were doing, which is what they should have done looking back on it, because most of the people didn't care. And then I remember like I made an ashtray. That was like my big thing. And I can't make shit. That's why I'm doing all this. Oh no, I started smoking when I was like 13.
Yeah.
So which now seeing one of my best friend's kid at 13, I was like, that was way too young to be drinking and
It's
doing
weird.
anything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the teacher was like, what are you doing? And we're like, it's not an ashtray. I forget. I said it would like hold pens or something.
Yeah.
But,
Out of clay or?
yeah, it was like because like they would go through the different mediums. It would be like, drawing, and then sometimes you would get into clay, and then it would be like the art program I don't think sucked. It was just, nowadays it's probably way different where there's like more people into stuff and you can probably use digital stuff, but back then it was like trying to teach people who didn't give a fuck about it. But it was always a fun class, but the teachers were always crazy. Like the one lady was like struck by lightning, so she was like weird. Same with music. Our music teacher was nuts, Mrs. Zugate. She'd wear like bell bottoms and she'd be like super over the top.
I love it.
Probably on LSD looking back on it and the time it was.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know.
Now I do.
I mean, it's not like the art department was like non-existent. Like I remember in high school, like always trying to get as much art class as I could.
Yeah.
So we did have like, it's called crafts, and you worked with the different mediums, like you said, like clay or like metal. We did like tiny like jewelry, like soldering and stuff like that. So like that was definitely really great for me to experience. And then like I remember this glow watch. The one teacher I had, everyone was scared of her,
Yeah.
but I loved her. She was confident and definitely told you how she felt, like how you were doing, and I respected that. She did yell at me once though, because I called her Glow Watch and not Mrs. Glow Watch. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a sign of respect
Yeah.
that I didn't say Mrs. Glow Watch, but that definitely like paved the way for me to accept that I am creative and I can do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd always get involved in any kind of art things that are happening, or if there's any way I could like volunteer, if like something needs to be I don't know, just any like art related thing, like signs or anything. And then got involved in like the drama club, kind of by accident, because they didn't have like a art director like person, so I'd be in charge of doing the sets and stuff.
That must have been fun, doing stuff
That
like that.
was really cool. Yeah, like because like I'd be in charge of. I'm only high school, so I mean, there's not too much you could do, but be in charge of like what supplies you need. How do you make a stage look like
a forest, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then, like, when it got closer to graduating, I'm like, what the hell am I going to do?
Did they do screen printing at all?
No.
See, we had, was Mr. Kalicki, I think. And then he went over like the basics of screen printing,
Awesome.
and then just different forms of doing different things. And I didn't understand what any of it was back then. And I was just like, cool, like,
Yeah.
this room stinks. Like, one girl passed out. Like, it was always just fumes. We had, because looking back on it, there was a photography class, but like I didn't understand what any of that stuff was. And it wasn't like I was pushed in a direction. I feel like
Right.
now it's like they want kids into more things they're into than, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how it was when you were in high school. When I was in high school, it was like, you go to college. And then so like, I was just like, okay, well, college. So then I didn't focus on like art, photography. I didn't focus on
Yeah.
anything.
It definitely wasn't, like, you feel like you should be like a
Like you were doing
doctor.
something wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
you were
like
into
you're doing
art.
something
Yeah.
wrong. And this is just a hobby. Like, that's how you thought of it as.
Yeah.
Like, it's not allowed to be your career.
Yeah, it was always weird to pursue other things because I was
Yeah.
always like messing around with video cameras and like, you know, we would do like TV shows in my parents' basement. And like now I look at it where I was like, wow, that's really what I wanted to do. And I went off a wild course,
Yeah.
obviously, like doing drugs and stupid shit. But like, I feel like if I would have had something grab my attention, I wouldn't have been doing all the dumb shit that I was
looking
doing.
back now, like, you think about those little moments when you're messing with cameras
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
what
And
made
you're
me
like,
happy.
wow,
Yeah.
that was actually a sign. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a random.
Yeah,
act.
I mean, I have 3 brothers, so it's like, you know, it was probably hard for my parents to focus on any of us. And then like, you know, there was a lot of like chaos and health issues going on in the house. But like, you know, now that I'm an adult, I look at it where I'm like, man, I wish somebody would have noticed that. Like, that grabbed my entire attention. Out of anything, I was like, hey, look, Mom, we made home movies. And it was always like, they liked it, but it was always like,
Yeah.
well, what, you know, how are your grades?
Well,
What
they're
college
scared
you
too.
going to Penn State?
Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. And that I never once pictured, because now that I'm older and I kind of look at things, like I always envision things. And then now I don't ignore the fact that it's a vision, and I'm like, oh no, I'm just not thinking it.
It's possible.
Now I look at it where I'm like, oh, I'm seeing visions because that's how I comprehend. And if I can see it in my head, and now that I can create it in my head, I know that it's possible because I've done, you know, apparel, and that's taking ideas out of your head. Getting tattooed, taking ideas out of your head. You start working with artists and you start learning how to completely take thoughts and things out of your head. And then now it's like I can picture things, and I'm not dumb to the fact that it's not going to be exactly what it is, because, you know, then you're just always moving the finish line, as my therapist says. She's like, yo, she's like, take some fucking credit. And
Yeah.
so
I've heard that.
yeah, so but sometimes I like to hang in there because that's the way I create, and I don't like
It's
take
definitely
like yesterday
a brutal process.
yeah, like yesterday I had to take credit because we were doing something with a local thing that nominated me to be a part of something, and I'm like, man, you really got to stop hiding behind your work, because I know people that are stuck behind their work. So I'm fortunate to have this and things, but you know, it's not easy to kind of walk through and do things and think it's normal. But now I just picture things and I'm like, okay, that's totally possible.
Yeah.
And it's odd because people will be like, you're not going to be able to do that. And then I get frustrated, but I'm just like, oh, well, not everybody thinks like I do.
Yeah, no, I've had those same thoughts, like, in my head. I'll be like, this is a great idea. Like, I'm excited about it. I think I can do it. And then...
You almost like go through motions. Like there's like steps.
Yeah,
Like,
and then you get the slightest bit of, not backlash, but like, maybe just negativity or like, are you sure? Like, you can do that? And then it just automatically, I'm like, am I sure?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know now.
And
You're
once
right.
that comes in, I'm pretty much checked out.
Yeah. So that's been a lot of, you know, like that was a battle. Like,
But then you also realize why people don't do the things that they want to do.
yeah.
Because they tell themselves that. And then it's like, I'm always just like, all right, well, I'm going to go 250% on, I can get this done. And if somebody knocks me down, I'll be at 175. Somebody knocks me down again, I'll be at 100. And then if I start going below 100, I'll actually start thinking like, maybe this isn't a good idea. Plus, I'm like, the longer you acknowledge how your brain works and how these visions and things are, the more you can start controlling them. So sometimes I'll be like, yo, let's do this. And then after 2 days, I'll be like, I could end up getting sued. And then somebody the other day was like, yo, are you still going to do that? And I was like, no, that was a recipe for disaster. And there probably would have been a fist fight. I could have gotten a lawsuit. And
But it's your decision.
I'm not going to do it.
To not do it.
Yeah. It was no one told me no.
Which
but I
is
also
great.
surround myself with people who believe in what I do. And they're always on board to help. And they're always on board to be like, hey, let's do this. And it's just been trying to grow it into the point where it turns into a business, which is very, very hard.
Yes.
So you get out of high school.
Yeah. Well.
What direction you got?
Yeah. So I'm looking into colleges. I'm like, what do I do? This is
What
scary.
colleges you looking into?
Well, I was kind of procrastinating
Yeah.
with it. I had two directions I was going: veterinary school
Yeah.
or art college. Two very different things. So
Yep.
I was in the process of applying to like King's College in Wilkes-Barre because that's where my brother and sister went.
I always saw Busta Rhymes at King's College.
What?
Yep. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I should have went.
Busta Rhymes came to King College. I went up there. There's somebody, I was young. There was, I don't even think, I wasn't 21. We drank at the house and then went to the Busta Rhymes concert.
That's epic. But yeah, I was like starting to apply for King's College. But I applied to Marywood up in Scranton. Not a huge art school, but they have like a good art program, and it wasn't too far away from my family
Yeah.
because I didn't want to like just move away completely. It was definitely a scary thought for me, making this step into like, you're young still. Like, how are you supposed to know what you want to do? So it came to a point where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I mean, I do love school and like learning and like all that kind of stuff. But I decided like if art wasn't a part of my career, I'm not going to be happy. So then when I made that realization, I was like, what in art like do you do? So then I did like research, and graphic design was probably the safest choice of like getting a job, because I was still worried about like satisfying my parents and stuff like that. And like following my brother and sister who went to school to become doctors, like that was a little bit different to be like, hey mom, hey dad, I'm gonna go and go to art school. So that was difficult. But
It's tough when you're in that position. I was kind of the last one out the chute to get their shit together. My oldest brother had went to Penn State, Maine for electrical engineering and graduated with, I think, honors. My other brother, Richard, we were 11 months apart, and we were like in trouble together all the time. And then one of the last times we got in trouble together, he straightened his shit out, got a girlfriend who he's married to now, and then he went to a tech school and got a degree, and he's in the career he's in now. My little brother went to Union Plumbing and he graduated and won awards and like is very high up in the union and is like running full construction jobs. And then I was just getting drunk. So when I finally figured out what I wanted to do at 28, there was support, but they didn't understand what I was doing. And then when I didn't stop, probably like by 35, they were like, hey, like we need to support him on this because he's not going to stop trying to do it. And then when I finally took the leap and like where I'm going to be doing now, I feel like I finally caught up to like where I should be next to them. And people tell me I don't have to be, but like it's how I grew up. It's like it's what I was. It's the product of my environment, and it's the area of I don't care what anyone says. That was hammered into my brain years ago, and that's a lot of the fight of what I've been doing and trying to do is to catch up with my brothers, but also to be like, I did my own thing. And it is possible to do your own thing. It's just totally insane. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do. You don't know what resources to do. It's very scary. You meet a lot of crazy people. You meet a lot of awesome people. You date a lot of crazy people. You date a lot of awesome people. But in the end, it's totally insane. And none of them went through that. They had a structured version of it. So I think times are changing now where it's more open to do things. But it seems like we run a similar parallel of that family where, you know, my brothers are all
expectations,
decorated, degreed things. And they call me sometimes and they're like, you're so lucky to be doing what you're doing. But I'm looking at them being like, well, you make money and have a house and you have windows. And,
big windows.
You have a big window in your house and you guys have families. But then I just also realized is like, I came from a time when I'm supposed to feel bad that I don't have a family. And that's been a struggle too, is like, all right, well, I have to like force myself to be okay with not being married and not having kids and running my own business, which I love. But like to me in the back of my head, it's like somebody's like,
it's scary going against
you
the rules.
You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. You look at you. It's like Catholic guilt mixed with like mixed with like a time when people were brought up and, you know, my brother's raising his kids now. Not that my parents did anything wrong. I love my parents. I wouldn't be where I'm at without my parents. But like, you know, my brother called me on a ride home and was like, you know, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I know it's been crazy and hard and difficult, but he's like, I'm trying to tell my kids to figure out what they want to do. And he's like, you know, mom and dad in that time period, they went a different direction and they just tried to push you into college and school. But I mean, that was a time my dad was in a war. You know, my mom was a nurse. Like it wasn't, you didn't have options for shit back then.
That makes sense. Like,
but now it's like you have so many options where like you can literally make a career on Instagram. So
isn't that crazy?
It's how most of my income comes in with like selling things to my following.
To up my Instagram.
It's tough. Now they know it's a business and push it down, but like I don't know, it's weird coming from a time when you're supposed to like, you know, it's like you kind of have this like written law, like get married, get kids, go to college and all that. And I feel like the more people I talk to, the more people have gone through a similar thing where it's like you're almost like forced.
Well, it's so comfortable to have a guideline, a set of rules to go by.
But it was always uncomfortable for me to follow them.
That's the thing. Like, it's just
I always did it wrong. And I would always ask questions and be like, well, why do we got to do it this way? Why can't we go around this way? And then they're like, no, don't think like that.
Yeah. And now, you're right. Like, I feel like things are changing. Like, that is being promoted more. Like, being you and not being ashamed of it. So, like, I was so glad I made that decision to go the graphic designer path.
So how was it when did you talk to your parents about doing it?
Yeah, they supported me.
Yeah.
You know, because they're the best parents in the world. Like, so supportive. I was so scared being dropped off at college. That was like, I was like wanting to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Because it was just completely different. I've never experienced being away from home like that. And then as time went on, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not going home.
The possibilities of what I could do are like endless now. Like it was so great. Like,
did you take the school right away? Like, did you enjoy like the classes and like you were learning a lot and you felt like it was more your people?
Yeah, I mean, I really did like school. Like, I don't know why. I like going to classes and learning and being tested. Like, I like competition, like in that sort. And it was crazy going to like the graphic design classes and being next to people that thought the same way.
Yeah.
Like, because, at high school there was like some creative classes and everything, but like you said, like not everyone cared about it.
No.
Like they just did it.
Like when you brought up about how you would work on extra projects, I remember now, like if there was an art thing would come up, I mean, out of the entire graduating class, they'd be like, oh, we'll get those 4 students to do everything.
Exactly. Yeah, that was
Where
exactly
now it's
it.
like if you go over to Nazareth, they have a production company for like their morning news. Like I'm like it's there's a lot dumped into this, but like they have like top tier school funding where like you could go in there and learn how to run a television program.
That is so cool.
Yeah, they didn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I got shipped off to Catholic school. We had plastic on our windows and had to wear sweatshirts.
Well, the thing is, I'm happy the world is recognizing this because you can't go through your day without passing through creative jobs.
Yeah.
Like everything you look at, everything you hear and see, like everything's creative. And hell yeah, people need jobs in those positions. Like, so I'm glad it's turning that way.
So how was college for a whole how long did you go?
4 years.
Yeah.
It was pretty great. I feel like I definitely flourished because like I didn't have any resources before then. Like, so every semester I would max out my credits, like taking as much extra classes as I could.
Yeah.
Like, painting or, I'm trying to think of what else. Like just more graphic design classes or like photography and just kind of learning as much as I could. And then taking printmaking, where I met like the best professor, Christine Medley. She has definitely been a big influence. She has so many connections in Scranton, and such a good teacher. So I would learn about printmaking. So we did like lino cuts and stuff like that, but then I came across screen printing and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know how many things I could make?
Yeah.
So that's where it really started, is really just being able to have access to screen printing equipment and just knowing like
Did you start out with like pull press?
like just manual?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely just like random rigs trying to just like print stuff on.
There's just something that some people get hung up on, and I did, and it's just when you make a t-shirt and it comes out the way that you pictured it in your head, and like you start falling in love with the steps to making it and like the art department, and like there's so many people involved, and then like you kind of like have a team all working on taking an idea out of your head, and then there's just something out of seeing those things come down the dryer. I'll never forget. And I told you from the beginning, like I do okay with my apparel, but it ain't worth doing. The only reason it's worth doing is because I'm in love with it.
Yeah.
So like I did the last apparel run, we did sweatshirts and stuff, and like it was a fun number where I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like kind of how it was when I first started. And I was like, let's push this a little further, but now you know how to push this a little bit further. You have this set up a little bit better, but like I really just enjoy taking an idea out of my head and like naturally creating by inspiration on TV or art, and then just like having it go, and then I'll go, oh, that's a t-shirt, and then like I go through the whole process, so I could see where you would fall in love.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing that you ever made?
So it started off more with printing posters and stuff, because it was just way easier to do that in the studio that was there. So I would print I did a show in Scranton at the Bog. It was like movie posters.
Yeah.
So I just did like a short run I did like Gremlins, Mars Attacks.
Do you have any of them still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gremlins, Mars Attacks, The Thing, E.T., just stuff like that. And so I wanted to do it like solely from hand. I didn't want to use a computer. So that's another thing I like, researching everything and learning about how did they do this without computers and everything like that. And I just really like working with my hands. Like I have the most control and it's just satisfying. So I came across Rubylith. It's this red film that you could cut with an X-Acto knife and peel away the parts you don't want. So those prints were made from a combination of like illustration on clear film, like with a pen, and then the Rubylith where I'd cut away shapes and stuff so I could do like a multicolor print, but it's just all done by hand. And then
That's wild.
yeah, it's like it's a crazy process because you need to, like, as you're working on it, kind of layer them on top of each other to see if what you're doing even makes sense. And it's just so satisfying. Like in the end, when you're actually printing it, when it all goes on top of each other, like you're just like, yeah. And you didn't even use a computer. It's all done by hand.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've only ever worked in the digital realm. I mean, like I said, in high school, we definitely did not have the access to the computers or anything. And
Yeah.
I had
me
always
either.
just worked in a digital time. So actually, you know what? Now that you're saying it, the art, when I started first doing it, I was working with tattoo artists.
Yes.
And a lot of the tattoo artists weren't in a digital realm at that time. So what we would have to do is we would have to take the art, and then I would have to photocopy it or scan it, and then the art department would have to redraw it, and then that's when I started learning about like PDFs and whether or not the art would work, and some places couldn't do it right and other places, so there was always that like hiccup between there.
Yeah, that's quite a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you get into it for the first time, it's like, this is a lot. And then you realize why screen printing places just do soccer shirts on Gildans and make a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. It's crazy. Like, I wish there was like a basic class in high school that taught people about what a file is, what high resolution means, what a PDF is.
Yeah.
Because even more importantly, nowadays, like, everyone uses that. Like, everyone has email and needs that kind of stuff. But I feel like a lot of people, like the clients I've worked with, bring you an idea or a picture, and they don't realize how many steps it takes.
No, that's the worst part, is
get to the
explaining to
last-
somebody
yeah.
that like it's not the right art file and it's not going to work.
Yeah. And then I just end up recreating it.
Yes. Yeah. So where were you at when you started getting into, so now you graduate, you have this love for the screen printing. Where did you take that screen printing knowledge and everything, and where was the first step you went? And at that time, did you think that you were going to be creating the business that you're running now?
I think I've always hoped. I've always had an interest in fashion. Like, that was actually one of my dreams.
Where did that come from?
I wanted to go to fashion school.
So did I. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was always one of my dreams. Like,
I tried going back. I went and looked at the Fashion Institute, I think in New York City or Philly. I think it was New York. A friend of mine had went there, and it just wouldn't have I had to work like a full-time job plus take a bus in, and it was too expensive to live in the city, and it just wouldn't work.
yeah, like that's kind of the same with me. Like, I kind of pushed as far as I could the boundaries of cost of going to college. And, so I feel like that was kind of a compromise going to Marywood. And I mean, it turned out to be such a great decision, even though student loans are terrible.
Yeah.
But so I sent, like, those posters I did kind of started it. Like, because I've done shows before, like just First Friday shows, Colin Scranton and whatever, but that was the first show I did with screen printing, like posters. And I really liked it. Like, I just like the process and how it looks in the end. And, you could run a certain amount of editions and everyone could have one, sort of thing, instead of doing like paintings or whatever that's just like a one-off. And I just liked it. And like I followed all these people on Instagram that were like influences, like Tall Boy.
Yeah.
to go along with the theme of Tall Boys today. But there's a certain people that I was just inspired to create more. So after I graduated college, I got a job in design, but it was for like a printing company that they like print on paper and stuff like that. And I learned a lot, was great, but I was like, this ain't it. So eventually I got hired at a screen printing place in Wilkes-Barre, and I was just like so excited. My life was finally like moving forward again.
Yeah.
Because when you graduate college, you're just, for me at least, in shock because you don't have this competition. I mean, you have competition with the real world, but like you're not having this competition with your student, like your classmates, and being graded on it and getting these creative projects that you do. So after you graduate, you're like, now what? So I finally found, when I started working at the screen printing place, like there was just so many resources available to me again.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to create more because, I mean, it's there and I could use it. So I like talked with the owner and he's like, yeah, you could use any of the equipment after hours.
Yeah.
Like whatever. And I was like, oh yeah.
It's a fun time. It brings me back to when I moved to Virginia and I was just doing apparel at the time and I didn't know anything. So like my college was, I was going to go to this screen printing place. My brother's friend Drew got me the job and I met a lot of awesome people there. Dated the only girl I dated while I lived in Virginia. And they were also like, hey, we'll help you with your t-shirt thing. Cause I worked really hard and I wanted to learn stuff. I went from catching the t-shirts and then I wanted to learn running the press, but my girlfriend at the time was running the press. So then they started showing me like QuickBooks and like organizing. And I remember like, I just wanted more. And like, so I like reorganized their entire, all their shelving and everything. So it was just a bomb went off.
Been there.
And it didn't matter. It just turned into a bomb again. And then like, and people are like, we tried doing this 1,000,000 times with them. And it's just how it was two brothers that ran it and they were very successful. Like I remember they got, it was probably Virginia or Virginia Tech. I don't know anything about basketball, but they went to like the Final Four or whatever. So they were like progressing along. So the kids were all wearing the basketball t-shirts. So it was like we would do overnights printing, 10,000. And it wasn't just us. Jeez. Like they hired every screen printer in Virginia to get like, there's a lot of fucking students. So I remember we did stuff like that. They had big contractors like Lumber Liquidators, and it wasn't fun stuff. No. It was all really stupid. Job. Yeah, it's a factory job. And they weren't into the art end of it. They were into running a business. And they saw money to be made in screen printing, and they looked at it as a tool, where I looked at it as an art form and a way for me to express myself. But that's where I started printing Never Again. And I was telling somebody the other day, like, I push a lot of my smaller clients to drop shipping now because I'm like, I still got t-shirts. I remember I made probably 6 t-shirts and I did 100 of each shirt, and I just thought people would buy them on the internet. And it was at a time though when Facebook, you could do stuff like that. So like I did sell out of t-shirts before, but it was like once Facebook started learning that people were making money, they started throttling people and you had to start paying, and it was not fun to go through all that. But I still have t-shirts in the back from when I made 600 t-shirts.
I have old t-shirts.
And then they started explaining like net 90 and all that kind of stuff. And then like they really gave me an opportunity to like learn more, because then that's where I started learning what t-shirts feel like. So like when people want a cheaper shirt but they've never put on a Gildan, and if you put on 3 Gildan t-shirts, the shoulders are going to be wrong in all of them.
Oh yeah.
And then I got into American Apparel, and I was like, I want the best. But then when that price comes down and you're paying way too much money for a t-shirt, it's a premium product, but then it's like it's also like Euro sizing, and then it's like there's all that stuff. And then I didn't finally land on a shirt until Next Level came out. And then when Next Level came out, that's kind of the standard for band t-shirts, and it's
that's
the standard.
go-to.
But what I've been noticing is that their necks kind of turning a little bit. I did start finding things wrong
Yeah,
with them. I've
well-
been using them for, if that's the only problem after like the last 15 years of using them, but I still think they're the best t-shirt to put it on.
Yeah. Next level, Bella Canvas.
Yeah. I didn't mess with Bella a lot. I mess with Independent Trading Company for all my
Yes,
sweatshirts.
I love Independent Trading
Yeah,
Company.
I want to circle back. I was going to interview those guys, but I didn't realize they have a plant out in Cali and they have another plant in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
in Pittston, which is so close.
I want to
me.
get a pod, like I want them to come to that one and then come here and podcast.
Absolutely.
But I think with
I
like
love their stuff.
how I was telling you about like the new space and having more fishing bait, like
Mm-hmm.
that'll be easier to get somebody to come in and do something like that. Like you can
Yeah.
offer them a more polished product.
Yeah, their stuff is amazing.
Yeah, and then what's also crazy about them is you can build a t-shirt line off of what they have. Like when I first came up, like I had to look through like, you know, those magazines where it's like, you know, they got lacrosse, they got girls basketball, and then you're trying to make like a streetwear company off of like sports apparel, and they don't have anything for that. And then they slowly started getting into that, where I saw some companies were doing like camo shirts, and then it wasn't until like Independent Trading Company and Next Level where like you can go into Next Level's catalog and create an entire, or Bella, you can create an entire line off of what they have, and if you did the art correctly, you would be caught up to what trends are going.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it wasn't like that at all. Because I remember people just getting t-shirts from me and they're like, yo, these suck. Like Gildan sucks. And I remember a friend
Yeah.
of mine, and I'll never forget, his name is Oliver. He said to me, I don't care what's on my t-shirt. If I go into my closet, I'm picking the one that's most comfortable. So even though you have the coolest designs, he's like, I'm not wearing them because they don't fit right and they're uncomfortable, and I don't want to be hot when I'm out. And then that stuck in my head.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like even, you know, people don't realize that, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a basic Gildan cotton shirt.
I still
not
do that to
gonna
this
last.
day.
Yeah.
Like there'll be shirts in the back and like my double XLs or something. I'm like, oh, that's a little roomy. I'm gonna wear that today. Like it doesn't matter what's on it. It's what's comfortable and what's fitting.
Yeah. I mean, to a point. Like there's some shirts I pick out because I really like the design.
Oh, I still match my clothes and stuff.
Usually
but-
though, the designs I like are on shirts I like.
Yeah.
Because they
You
probably
also
know
become
what they're doing.
like I became picky with what I like and what fits me, and you know, I just kind of find, or what I make, because I'll go out shopping and then I'll be like, I don't want to pay for any of this shit. I want to make it.
Once you
and then that's when I start
once
being
you
like,
make your stuff, you're
yeah.
like, I don't want to pay for this.
because like beanies, like I was gonna buy a beanie the other day, and I was like, I'm just gonna make fucking beanies. And then I was like texting my screen printer, and I'm like, hey, you know that logo we're doing? It was like the North Face ripoff. I was like, let's embroider those on beanies. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna sell
Much
them.
better.
Worst case, I get a one-off and pay them for it.
Yeah.
So when you started at the screen printing spot, what was that like getting there and getting into it? Because there's a part of it where you realize it's not what you want to. It's when you start realizing it is a business and they're just chunking. You try and find art in there. So did you start making your own clothing at night? And did you take them up on that? Like where were you
Yeah.
at when you first started? Because that's got to be cool to
I
do.
took it up right away.
Yeah.
It was like, well,
Like cool, starting tonight.
yeah, so I'll be here. Give me a key. Like, I definitely did. Like, I just went right into it. Like, eventually, like, when you're there for a little bit, you learn more about the brands
Yeah.
and everything. Because, I mean, I was up front. I was doing graphic design work. But I was also kind of doing a little bit of customer service, too. And the amount that I learned of, like, fabrics and different brands and, like, what's effective, I then put that into like printing my own stuff. Like there's so much I've learned over the years. Like, you know, sometimes it's a pain to print on a tri-blend because it burns.
Yeah.
Like just simple things like that. And then it was nice being able to have access to like all of these different inks
And
like-
screens and all the
screens
expensive stuff.
and palettes. And I could put it through a dryer.
Yeah.
Like that's beautiful. Like I like experimenting with there was neon inks and glow in the dark,
Yeah.
reflective.
It's cool when you start going through like their ink selection and you start seeing like all the different stuff that you can do.
Yeah. Like that just made it better because I feel like I create probably with anyone, but I feel like I create way more when I have all these different things to inspire me. Like materials and mediums inspire me the most. So I was, ordering garments and printing on them, not being able to order
And you get them at cost too.
Yes. Yeah. So that all made it possible.
Yeah.
So at first I can't order a lot. Like, even though at cost, it's still expensive. So I would just print a couple here and there. And then I got into the world of vending. Like,
At this point, do you have the name of your business and everything locked in? Where did that all come from?
so that was not locked in right away. Like, I kind of always had stuff that I was selling and like, from all over the place, from making planters
Yeah.
out of concrete to doing embroidery to doing paintings. Like, it's all over the place. I finally was like, I need to like have an Instagram dedicated to this. And like, I always liked Panthers because I was heavily influenced by the tattoo world, the culture, and Panthers were always like my favorite design, like how different artists took it different ways. So I was like, I want the name Panther to be in there somewhere. So, and I like alliterations. So I wanted it to start with P. And I was hanging out with two of my friends the one time. And I was like, I don't know what the second word should be. Like, I don't know. And then my one friend was like, what about puke?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So Panther Puke just stuck.
I like that version better that you said.
It's stuck. And then, like when I made the logo for it, I, had a panther and I wanted to be throwing up something, but instead of like making it like vomit, I made it flowers so that, it wasn't like too upsetting.
Yeah. No, the name is what always stuck to me.
Yeah, stuck
To me, like Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it stands out.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, some people might not like that. I'm like, well, fuck those people.
Yeah. No, the name and everything that it stands behind is like kind of what you build the business off of. And once you have that and you understand that and that's what you want to do, I feel like that's your base. And then it's like, all right, well, what are we creating off of this name?
It made it easier to visualize who I want to be.
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't pigeonhole you, that name. And like when I first stumbled across it, I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And then I like saw the logo and everything and I was like, oh man, she could do whatever she wants underneath this name. And that's what I always give advice to people who are trying to do stuff. And I was like, don't pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning I was starting clothing and I called it Never Again. And then when we started doing clothing, it was Never Again Clothing. And then that was like the dominant force. But when I went to trademark it, I was like, oh man, if I just make this clothing and I want to do other stuff, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
So then I trademarked Never Again, and then from there I had Never Again Clothing, and then once I was comfortable umbrellaing Never Again Clothing, then Never Again Radio started. Then I had Never Again Radio, and then when we moved here, I called it Never Again Studio because we were a studio. So I didn't want to call it Never Again Radio because it's not all we do down here. It's kind of like production. So then anytime I did production, it was Never Again Studio. Then I switched it, the Instagram handle, to Never Again Studio. And then now it's kind of like grown into where Never Again Studio is like my company.
Yeah,
and
that
then
could mean a lot.
then Never Again Radio branches underneath that because I do podcasting.
It's whatever comes out of your studio.
Never Again Clothing comes out of here. And then when we started doing the burgers, I was like, well, I'm not gonna, you can't say Never Again in a food concept. So then I was like, fuck, what are we gonna do? And then because what's funny is how the food started is I knew that I would eventually need to have a cooking show. Mm-hmm. But I also knew that like how long it took doing this podcast for it to turn into what we're doing right here. So I was like, all right, well, why don't we start making food? And when I post food, I'll call it Studio Kitchen because it's going to be a studio. It's going to be the kitchen in the studio, which is going to be the show.
I like that.
But then I was like, oh, that works really well. And then when Matt at Axelrad hit a home run on like the burger and the lightning bolts.
Matt's great.
I love him. I don't work with him as much anymore, but I had a conversation with him the other day and I was like, I miss talking to you, and he's like, me too, and I'm like, we should still just work on design, work together.
Him and his dog.
Yeah, he just had a baby.
I know.
It's crazy. I'm like, you had a kid? He's like, I know. He's like, this is nuts. Matt's one of my favorite people.
That's great.
I like everybody over at Axelrad. So,
they're great.
So then when that all came together and then we started doing the pop-ups, I just called it Studio Kitchen. And then
I love that.
Now that when it's going to come full force around, because I knew what I was doing because of how it's going to be, now that the TV show or the cooking show is going to be called Studio Kitchen, and then the business we're opening up is the Belvedere, and that's a separate business that has nothing to do with Never Again. But in the evenings, I'm going to run Studio Kitchen as a pop-up out of a restaurant that I'm partnered with somebody. So then I'm like, this is so much better, because I want to put like a neon hamburger outside, and like when it lights up purple, you're gonna know that like there's burgers to be sold. I'm gonna do like super LA stuff in this coal miners town. Yes.
I like that.
Come toque them all.
It's so great when like the idea finally like.
Yeah, because you have to build it off of that. So if you would have just did like Panther clothing or something like that, you would have pigeonholed yourself as an artist.
Much more than that.
And when you pigeonhole yourself, it might work for somebody like the screen printing companies we were talking about, where all they do is just ka-chunk, 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 and we're just making softball clothing, volleyball clothing. We get our high schools in here. We make money that way. And what's funny is I had an opportunity to do that working with Axelrad and a couple other places, and I just didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the sales and the networking, which is what I thrive on here, but like I just didn't enjoy selling somebody the bare minimum of an artistic design. And that's all making t-shirts for schools and all that. It's literally the bare minimum to save cost. And then I'd be like, oh, well, why don't you change this with the design? Then I'd be like making clothing companies for people, and then I'm like, they just asked for a softball t-shirt. So like, I don't know, it's advice I do give people early on is like, don't pigeonhole yourself, and don't overthink it, and like you need something that's going to be able to be like your baseline, because like if I would have just done Never Again clothing, I would have never wrapped my head around the concept of making everything Never Again. And now I make a little bit of money off of clothing, a little bit of money off the podcast, a little bit of money off the food, but when all three of those come together, it's sort of a normal paycheck. I mean, I basically make the same money as if I had a shitty job, but I've always had shitty jobs. So to me, it's not like I ever found something where I was like, this is worth great money, and I'll just stay here and forget all this shit and go get married and have kids.
But now you do what you love.
Yeah. And like, I didn't realize as well as when I crossed the finish line, I wanted freedom. And when you have freedom and like, I don't have to wake up at a specific time, and you came down here and my day's wide open. I got a podcast tonight. In between those two times, I'm going to do some other things, but like, that's my time, and I can do whatever I want with my time. And as soon as I was able to control that, that's when I didn't care about money and I didn't care about anything else, and I just can live freely. But now it's like to a defect where I'm like, yo, you gotta start paying attention to money. Like, let's get caught up, and then we can have more. Like, now you know what you're doing, so let's get over here in this game, and then let's create the freedom there, and then you can back away, and now you're making more money. And now I'm like strategically trying to like venture on into like real business.
Yeah, money is one of those things that stop you from jumping and taking a leap. Like I worked at the screen printing company.
Yeah, well, let's finish out there. So you're able to work in the evening, and you start Panther Puke there, and now you're getting into the world of vending.
Yeah. I really like enjoyed experimenting, like, because when you're printing your own stuff, you're like, oh, maybe I should put a print in this weird location, and I don't mind asking for it because I'm doing it. Like if you're like sending your job somewhere to get printed, you have to like, go by, the print goes on the front, like stuff like that. And I mean, they could do weird stuff, but it's just not cost effective either. But like when I'm printing it myself, I could, maybe put like Panther Puke along the side and stuff like that and experiment. And at first it was kind of like a little bit more basic, like, trying to get better at printing and all that kind of stuff. I kind of grew into like now, like I'll do my own tags and
that's fun
and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference. We also have embroidery there. So
are you still at the same screen printing spot, or was this while you were there?
So this is while I was there, but like currently I'm transitioning out of there.
Yeah.
But I was able to make so much stuff, like from screen printing and embroidery stuff, because like I'd get involved in that too, like hats and beanies and like different things for clothes.
Where were you hitting up the vending?
So at the beginning, it was in Scranton. There was these festivals, I guess, called Arts on the Square, where I would just, because like I used to do the graphic design for them and help out, so then I would get a free spot like to vend there.
Yeah.
Because like vending costs are like, you take a huge hit with that, and you have
They're
to
crazy
You
sometimes.
have to sell everything you have in order just to be there. So that worked out. Like I would do it a couple times a year, just local, and do pretty good between like prints and some shirts and stuff like that. But then when I became friends with Electric City Tattoo up in Scranton, got closer to them, I started helping with the convention they put on every year in April.
Yeah.
And that is my favorite event to vend.
I think I vended there once when you were there. That's where I first saw you, was at that event.
I think I do remember that. It's crazy. It's years ago now.
I was always by Mike was running
I was just
Go
gonna
Tattoo
say,
Removal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't been there in a while, but also the pandemic.
That's what stopped me from going there.
Makes me confused with what's happening anymore.
Yeah, there's a timeline
But-
drop off, because I used to go there every year. I vended
Yeah.
there, and then I would have Woody on, because while we were talking, I was like, I
Yeah.
should have him back on to promote the show,
Yeah.
or promote the convention, and that's where I would go sometimes with my friends. It was my favorite convention to go to, because you could stay
Absolutely.
in that hotel.
It's the perfect
There's-
size.
Yeah, there's food trucks there. I like all the artists. My friend Keith B. Machine Works, he's always up there, so I can always see Becky and him, and then like Alexis and all these other tattoo artists that I know. They're all there, so like we'll go out drinking, and then like I would get tattooed by Stevie P every year, and then that was just because I used to get tattooed constantly, and then as I got older, I didn't have time and money, and so I would get one piece decent size, and I would just have Stevie do it there, and we'd always do something fun. Like I like the one year we did like a Fast and Furious tattoo where he did like a big tuna fish, and it said like nobody wants the tuna. We did Old Greg on me. Well, actually, the first one he ever did on me was death metal or dark metal Captain Crunch, because he had this Captain Crunch design, and I was like, yo, I want that. Like, I grew up eating Captain Crunch, and he was like, cool. And then I don't think he was into doing it once we got there, and he was like, I don't know, man. He's like, I'm just not. He's like, do you want to just pick something else I have? And I was like, no. And he's like, all right. And I'm like, just do whatever you want with it. It doesn't have to be Captain Crunch. And he's like, all right. And he's like, well, I said, look, I go, because I from getting tattooed, if you let the tattoo artist do what they want, and you keep an idea of what you're doing together, they're into the tattoo. So I had to get him into the tattoo. And then he was like, so can I do it like a death metal Captain Crunch? And I was like, yeah, dude, I would rather that.
Yeah, you're like, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, so then he like did the captain's hat and put an upside down cross, and did like the I forget the dude's name, King Diamond, like fucking Norwegian. I'll show it to you after the show, but like he was so fucking pumped on doing it, and then we just became friends. And then I bought art from him, and I want to get him on the show eventually. But yeah, I loved going to that. And then when COVID stopped it, and then I think the following year when they finally brought it back, it was still kind of like the weird time of like, things are open, maybe they're not.
It was bizarre coming back to it.
Yeah.
Like coming back and helping out, setting it up and everything. I was just like, man, it's weird to be here. It's only been, was it a year or 2 years that it was?
It was 2 years, I think everything was kind of fucked up.
I mean, that's kind of a lengthy time. But,
yeah. Try getting stuck in a fucking basement.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was weird.
Yeah.
Like, because I was used to doing that every year. Like,
that is my favorite convention.
I've been
hands
doing
down.
it since 2015.
I've gone to the Philly one. I've gone to a Jersey one. I've gone to the one that they put on around here, Skindustry.
Yeah.
Which was
Skindustry's
cool.
good.
But Scranton, for whatever reason, I don't know if
Well,
it's
apparently it's one of the hardest ones to get into.
the Scranton one.
Like as an artist.
Yeah.
Like like people fight to get in there.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know if it's a hotel. I just did if it's Scranton in general, because then you can walk out. They have the food trucks and they have barbecue. The people are cool. There's a bar in the right in the lobby, and then like it's I don't know why. It's my I mean I do know why, but I can't explain
the
it. The
layout definitely is good though.
Yeah.
Because other conventions, I guess now I'm thinking about it, like doesn't have.
Did you sell all kinds of different stuff there besides? Like did you sell like trinkets and different things like that while you were there, or just your because I bought that from there from a vendor, and I don't know if it was you or if it was somebody else who was selling that style.
I have
stuff.
an idea of who that's from. He does wood carvings.
No, this was just like they just had a bunch of rad stuff on a table. So it was almost like flea market-ish.
No, that wasn't me. I used to, some of the vending I've done is stuff like that because I love collecting stuff.
Yeah, because I had that mask, and then I have that mask over there.
Yeah.
And then this one was the only thing I've ever found that matched it.
Yeah. I definitely had stuff like that. But as, like when I started out vending at the tattoo convention, it was mostly prints.
Yeah.
Like mostly screen printing prints. Because I
It's
started
so hard
out,
to sell that shit at tattoo conventions.
Well, I actually did pretty good.
Yeah.
Which I was so surprised. Like, I thank Matt Hiller for getting me into this. Like, he used to live in Scranton. He has Revival Letterpress. I actually interned with him when I was in college, and definitely gave me an appreciation for like being meticulous and the process for things. Like, I was able, because he vended at the conventions.
Yeah.
So then I was able to kind of be in the booth with him. And it was just like, it was so cool. Like, it was definitely one of my goals to be able to vend there. And like, then all of a sudden I was. And then as years went on, Woody like was like, hey, do you want to do it again? I was like, absolutely.
He's always good like that. And I think that's why it's hard to get in there, is because if you have a good relationship and you do well, or you just want to keep coming, if you were in once, you stay in until you don't want to do it anymore. But if you leave, you lose your spot.
Yeah, and like I'd be like, Woody, I'll help you out with anything you need. So like then I'd be doing the signage and like, you know, getting the stuff printed for the events.
Yeah, it takes an army to put that stuff on.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but that's definitely my favorite part of the year is getting ready for the convention. Yeah. You know, it's just exciting, everyone working together.
Where did you grow from the conventions then? Because you were doing stuff a lot locally and, you know, doing the Scranton Tattoo Convention, and then where does it kind of grow from there?
Yeah, I mean, from there, I mean, that event kind of allowed me to kind of expand my clothing and everything, because it would come around and be like, man, I really want to have this
because you
line
got to
of
start getting
clothing.
ready. You got to start getting ready.
I want to have like that would give me the motivation to produce all of these new garments and prints and whatever. And that really helped me just grow what Panther Puke is today. Like, I finally like realized, hey, I could like make this stuff and people actually like it. Like, it is so nice seeing someone walk by and like just laugh at something, because my clothing, like, I don't do
it's out there, like the one that stuck out, and it's probably, I've always wanted to interview you, and then when I'm booking, it's just sometimes there's like a lot of people in the matrix, and you kind of wait till things slow down, and then I go heavy into booking, but it's like a lot of really interacting. But I think what pulled me in, and when I started talking to you, is when you did the meat packaging shirt and all that.
That was
one
wild.
Of
my favorites. You know, I wish I wanted to bring one, but they're all in Scranton at Tusk. That's where I sell like my stuff in person. Because I was like, damn it. But that was definitely one of my favorites. Like, I mean, where could you go and buy a meat shirt?
Yeah,
that's
and then the way you,
like
you put it on the styrofoam and wrapped it up.
So like, I did a show like years ago where I made, it was like a gallery show, and I made like, you know, I can't just do normal stuff. So like, I did like a T-bone steak, collage painting thing, and which is lost now, by the way. I wonder who has it. And then years later, I wanted to like make some kind of embroidery of some sort. And I was like, oh man, that T-bone steak, that needs to go on something. Like, I want...
It's fun when you pull things from other things and turn them into things.
And like, it definitely, like I'm like glad how it kind of transitioned into this. And I was like, working at the screen printing place, I'm aware of all of the brands and all of the shirts because I'm constantly on there looking. And I came across this shirt with a certain tie-dye that was like red and yellow and like cream.
Yeah.
And at first I'm like, what the fuck is that? Who would wear that? But I'm like, oh my God.
Isn't it funny when you run into stuff like that and you're like, how can I make this into clothing?
Yeah. And I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it's meat. This is exactly what the meat needs to go on. And it's like, you could be a walking piece of meat. And I was like, this is one of my best creations. So I like edited the file and like made it like embroidery, like that would embroider better. And then I just had this meat shirt. And being a graphic designer, like loving packaging and advertising, and being able to catch people's attention, I just thought it would be funny, like, what if I present this to people like it's real meat?
Yeah.
And it was fun, like, researching some stuff. I tried to find, like, a little bit more, like, earth-friendly things because I kind of felt wrong thinking about, let me just buy this ream of styrofoam just to be thrown out. It's not even being used for anything. So I found biodegradable packaging.
Yeah.
And even the wrapping around it's supposed to be biodegradable, like the shrink wrap. And then I made labels for it. Like I did research. I went to the store and looked at the meat labels and like weighed the shirts.
Yeah, that's
got
so
the
much
cost.
fun.
The cost. Is like, whatever it is a pound, like equals actually the cost that it is.
Yeah.
And, I'll put the packaging date on it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
it was wild.
that was, that was really fun. Like, that's the stuff I want to do more of.
Yeah.
And now, like, at Tusk in Scranton, it's on the square, where I have the meat. They're in a tray with fake ice.
Yeah.
So.
I love it.
Yeah. Like, when
I
I vend with the meat shirts, it's so funny to see everyone walk by and they're like, I thought that was real meat. I thought you were selling meat.
That's awesome.
It's so great to make people laugh.
I get inspired by other t-shirt companies, and I bought a couple of different books. Like Mark Echo's book is really good about like how he started Echo clothing, and it's all similar stuff of like what we're talking about, like where. I'll show you some of the books I have. There's like 2 or 3 books that are about like street artists who started apparel companies and then like went on to bigger things. And I remember I was trying to get out to the Vegas show, Magic, and like I've always wanted to do that, and I'm going to do it. Like when I level up next, and I have a better knowing of what I would want to do. Like, I don't care if nobody buys any of my clothing. It's just a goal to go to Vegas and do Magic and like set up a booth and like see if anybody's interested in my stuff. Like at one point, the older stuff, like the original stuff that like I'll eventually bring back just because so much work went into it and I only sold like 50 of each, but it's because my audience wasn't big enough.
Well, I'm actually wearing a shirt that I made years ago. These were long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
And it has like a moth on the left chest of sorts that I drew. And on the back, it's a web. And then on the, what sleeve is it? On the sleeve, it's a web and it went all the way down and there was a spider there. And I was debating on if I should print the sleeve in print or not.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was like, oh, just do it. And I did it. I was like, I hate that. So, like, I didn't sell many. I sold a couple. I was like, this sucks, because I really liked the moth and the web design on the back. So then years later, I was looking at these shirts just sitting there. And I'm like, let me repurpose these. So I cut the sleeves off and sewed them into short sleeves. Which,
so those are sewn?
Yeah. Yeah, so like and I kind of like it because the web, like the string, kind of goes into the seam.
Yeah.
And then I hand bleach dyed them all, like in different patterns, which I love brown and black.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite combinations. So now I have all these shirts that I made. Yeah, a lot more work was put into them. Not a crazy amount, but then they were all sold out.
Yeah, it's nice to like go back to projects or even like, because the way I used to do it before is like I'd take a shirt and then be like, oh, I'm done with it. And then now it's like, especially with doing drop shipping, is like, you know, I want to like plan my line out and I can bring the classics back, but then they're always there for people to get them.
Yeah, you need some staple items.
So it's like I have like my original core designs that like I created the business with, but then at the same time it evolved onto different things where now I'm like older and I'm not really doing like, I like wearing t-shirts, but like sometimes I like to wear clothes like that I would go out in or go on a date in or like be more like
of those.
Yeah, I'm like
I don't really have those.
Because then like I just got stuck being the guy in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But then I got into flannels, and when I got into flannels, I'm like, you can like make a nice clean, crisp look of like doing some simple embroidery on a flannel.
Yeah.
And then like I'm like, all right. And then like even like yesterday when I had to go to that photo shoot, I hit up my screen printer and I was like, yo, I want to do white shirt and I want to do purple print and I want to do the North Face ripoff. And I had it on, and like I usually just rock cargos like this. Like it's funny where I'm just now back into like how I was in the 90s where I'm like I just liked big ass army pants that I just cut into shorts, and like now I want to start working on like putting some fabric on the pockets and like slowly developing like when I get into like, because I feel like there's going to be a time where like I'm going to have businesses set up and I'll have funds to just kind of like decide what I want to do, and then that's when I would put serious money back into my apparel, because it's what I started with and what I know the most about. But like when I left here, like I got dressed and I had like the hoodie on and it was a crew and I wore it with the cargos and I had my Vans on and I was like, and I never tell myself I look good. I was like, damn, I'm like, you like this is I would wear this on a date.
You're put
like
together.
Yeah. And then I was like, you know, and then I had a hat on and I was just like, I love that. And then like, I love the fact that I created that out of like, so then now it's like, I get more interested in doing like, because I have plenty of friends that like go on dates, but they don't have clothes to wear. And then it's like, all right, well, you know, or if you get stuck going to like some kind of wedding bullshit where it's like, you know, I could have a nice polo that like looks good. And like, I could start creating stuff for like more mature things that you get drugged to, but it's still like that fashion side of it where like you still like,
you're going to be like, be yourself.
You're going to be like the baddest looking dude out of everyone who's dressed up. So like everybody was wearing suits. Three of the guys were probably wearing suits yesterday. One dude was just normal dress, but like I was the only one, in my opinion, who was comfortable. I was like in a hoodie, my thing. I had my shoes on. I'm sure those guys wear suits a lot, but like I wore what I wear, and like that's kind of like where it's always been with me, where I've been trying to get to a point where like I want to make what you can just wear, not like, all right, well it's just t-shirts. It's that. It's like I want you to be able to take like my collection and put it together and wear an outfit like I would and be confident going out on a date or confident going out to an event. And it's not just like, because like when I noticed I wanted to start changing, what people would be like, oh yeah, I needed a gym shirt. And I was like,
thank you.
Like, these are fucking like, I'm like trying to make like shirts you would buy at a skate shop. Like not. So, it's, I don't know. I'm just, I will for always be in love with fashion, and I will always for be in love with creating.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Where are you at with, like, what are you doing now? Cause like your meat thing you were doing was kind of recent. So like, what are your plans on like the future of Panther Puke? Where do you see it growing? Do you want to get, you know, you had talked about switching jobs. Like, is there a part of you that's trying to do this full time? Like, where's your head at with everything?
Yeah. So things have been changing a lot recently. I've been at the screen printing shop for 6 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, you devote your life there. There's so many, you know, late nights I put in there helping out, and, you know, it's a family. So like coming to a decision to say, hey, I'm leaving was.
Have you told them yet?
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
It was, you know, I was a little emotional because it's like.
Did you cry?
I teared up a little bit.
Yeah. It's hard because you, like, when I worked even in the screen printing down in Virginia, it's like, you know, you worked with 6 people. It was
Yeah,
like
it's a small
Drew, my
family.
girlfriend, the two owners, and Lisa was the lady out front, and we'd sit with her on our lunch break because there was just a couch there, so we'd go get Chipotle and then have lunch with Lisa, and she was funny, and the art department guy was a total lunatic, and then there was the embroidery guy Dan, who I worked with because his son we did skateboarding stuff with, which he actually grew up and went on to being sponsored and all this stuff, but
That's awesome.
there was only 10 of us there.
Yeah.
You know the UPS people.
It's like breaking up with your family.
Yeah.
So-
and they want the best for you, so they're probably not they're like, this sucks, but you can't grow as a person anymore.
That's exactly how the conversation went, because I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. So, and then I kind of just explained where it's like, I feel like I'm not growing anymore. I kind of need to push myself more. I just been stagnant, and that really makes me unhappy
Yeah.
and depressed. If I'm not being challenged, I was busy, but at work, but I definitely I feel like there's just much more that I need to be doing. I can't just devote my life to this when it's not even my company,
Yeah.
and there's no more room for me to grow. So
See, that's what happens too in those small situations
Yeah.
is you're not moving up unless the person above you dies or quits.
yeah, I started out there as a graphic designer, and I'm leaving as a graphic designer, but I was kind of the manager. People came to me with issues because of how much I wanted to learn about the place. So I knew the in and outs of every department. But then as I was there at that position, it's just what now from here? I feel like I can't just stop my life. So I ended up, giving my notice, and I'm helping out there for the rest of the year, trying to train, and because I want them to succeed, And that's still good though, because it's good for me mentally, not just being bye.
Yeah.
I could still stop in with my dog. Everyone misses the dog, Olive. And we can stop in, do some training, still say hello, and I still want to have this relationship because I still want to send my jobs there.
Yeah.
Because my goal is now with Panther Puke is I want to focus more on my freelance, and I am quitting that job, but I did find a part-time job to work remotely from home, which is now going to give me the freedom. I'm still going to be making some money, so I'm not going to starve.
Yeah.
But now it's time for me to really dig in, try and find clients. I'll do a range of things like freelance work to, logo design, branding,
Yeah.
pretty much anything a company needs, I could offer advice on. But then ultimately, I really like working with clients on creating apparel. There's an apparel company that I have been working with at Fig, where I work in Wilkes-Barre, that I would like to continue working with and stuff like that, because it's a collaboration. You get close to these people, they get comfortable working with you. But now it's just trying to build my clientele. I have some, but I feel like now that I'm going to have time, I'm going to really try to put myself out there and try and get some work.
I like it. I like the transition on it too, because it still allows you to make your clothing. It still allows you to make money off of that. And what I learned from just other people who are making way more money than me and have bigger businesses is the move is to kind of create a couple different businesses that bring in income. And you shouldn't rely on one business to do that. And I learned that with doing Never Again, where people don't understand where I get my money from. And I'm like, well, I can make, let's say $1,000 off of food in a month. And then I can make anywhere between, how the apparel game goes, 300 to 1,000. So, all right, well, now I'm at 2,000. All right, well, then I got to bring in revenue to pay my bills. Well, if the podcast, I sell enough ad space to pay all my bills, and then I'm bringing in an extra $2,000, I don't really need much more than that because I'm here.
And it's nice having that variety.
Yeah, because like I think the hardest part about an artist or somebody creative turning something into a business is once you build a business, you have structure. And how I like to do art and how I like to be creative is that there can't be structure until I build the structure on how wide my project is going to be. So I will build structure and bring it in, and then now I know how to take something that's this, and then I can bring it into here, and then I'm like, all right, well, now we have these parameters around it, so let's make money. So it's like if I do a music event down here and we film it, and then now I can put sponsored ads on it and I can sell tickets, it's like, well, all right, well, now I have a whole nother thing where it's like, all right, well, now I'm doing shows. And it's like, I never thought I would put on a show and make money. And I did put on one and make money. It's like, I didn't make a lot of money. And most of it went back to like the shit, I had to buy a stage and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like once you get to a point where, you have everything you need and you can start moving forward. Like when I build the new studio, it's like, we're starting out with all this equipment. I'm not dumping any more money into it until I have money in the bank, because the not biggest mistake, but like when I started this, I was broke, and I'm not going to go broke going into venture two. Right. We're going to use all this equipment that works, and then we're slowly going to upgrade the mics, and then like we're going to eventually build, I'll probably use this stuff for the studio interviews, and then, all right, well, what do we want to do? Well, I'm really passionate about the cooking show. And I see that like I can create that show and even have somebody on like you and be like, hey, cool, we're going to do this. And then we can talk apparel and we're going to make food, but we're also going to do a podcast. But then if somebody wants to come on my show and I don't have time for it, well, yeah, I'll produce a cooking show for you. It's $700.
Right.
And that's cheap.
Yeah.
So like if you want me to like create some content for you, I'll sell you content. And then I'm over here doing my own thing.
That's a deal. Yeah.
So like, and if they're paying attention to what they're getting $5,000 worth of stuff for $700.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, now I know what going into it, like, oh, well, now I can make money off the cooking show. I can make money off the lounge show. I can make money off the radio show. I'm making money off the deli or the bagel shop. Plus, I'm making money off of Studio Kitchen at night. Plus, I'm making money off of the apparel.
Yeah.
And at some point, I have to stop making money off of stuff. But, like, that's how long it takes when you start something at fucking 28 and you're going to be fucking 43.
Yeah.
That's how long you can't stop working on something because you don't make money right away. And if you're creative, it's going to drive you fucking nuts that you're working at a regular job. And if you don't itch that itch, then you're just depressed and fucked up all the time.
Oh my gosh. That's why it was so difficult for me to leave this job I was at, because
it's your creative itch.
Yeah. And it was like, if I do this jump, like diving into, Panther Puke and like more of my freelance stuff, like, are you gonna like make it? But at one point, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where I am now. Like, if you're talking about like you're doing another studio and you're going to work with what you have now and then build up. That's kind of like how Panther Puke is right now. Because like right now, it's going to be a little rocky. And I'm going to try and create stuff with maybe things I have and try and repurpose, or maybe even sew some of my own stuff.
Yeah.
Because I do like sewing. But I'm just
You can help me with my shorts.
yeah. I do sewing a little bit, and I would love to kind of like work in that a little bit more, because I like the idea of making like custom stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely want to push Panther Puke. Like that's my dream, like having my own clothing line. And it always felt silly saying it for some reason, because how we're brought up. But
I think it's also odd because of where we live. Like if you were in California,
yeah, I think
you
that's
and
what it
600 other people on the block would be making their own clothing line.
And that's what it is.
So like that's why I feel like it was appealing to people around here, is because nobody was really doing it.
I grew up in a town with
coal miners town
with one stoplight.
Yeah.
Like,
so I call this a coal miners town. Yeah. You're actually in a coal miners town.
Yeah. Like I was saying, like I went to my Nana's house and watched those shows. Like that's in a patch town. Like that's where my grandfather went to go to the mine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's like right where I grew up. So definitely it was hard to, slowly I broke out of that shell coming from a small town like that.
Yeah.
Going
helped.
to college, even though it's so expensive, and it's like, was this pointless. There's so many connections that I've made, and my life has changed so much that it's like that was such a great opportunity.
Experiences, networking, all that.
I have
teachers you can still reach out to.
Yeah, I could still talk to any of my teachers. And I mean, I graduated in 2015. Like, it was such a nice group of people, talented people. Like, the professors have a lot of connections too. Like, if you needed help, like, they're there for you.
Yeah.
Like, that, you can't get that at like a bigger college, I don't think.
No.
Like, so I think that was one of the best moves.
Yeah.
Especially if I want to stay around here. Like, I'm not moving to New York or Philly.
Yeah, anything that takes you out of your comfort zone. Bartending was that for me, because I didn't go to college, but like bartending taught me like how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And then like I still am very shy. I'm like slowly morphing. I mean, when I make the next move, which is like how I try and like progress my life, is like I want this version of myself that's in my head, and like it's the version of myself that like my friends and family get and not a lot of people do. Like even yesterday, it's like we were in an elevator, and like I used to just joke around with my friends, and now I'm like comfortable enough to be where I'll be like, oh, well, I'll say that, and I don't care if they don't think it's funny, because then I'll just be like, oh, that bobbed. But like, like I had a whole room full of strangers laughing, and it feels good to be like the version of yourself that everybody else sees and loves for you to be. So like what I'll do is like keep putting myself in a position where like I have to be that person.
It forces you out.
So like when I had to do the show solo, this had to make me be the person that my friends like, where like they'll call me and like, I got to make you feel comfortable. So like, I don't know you. You came into a basement and I deadbolted a door.
And I was like, give me food.
Yeah. So like,
give me food and liquids.
You know, I try and talk to people on the phone beforehand, but it's like, even if you do that, by the time you get together, in order to make it comfortable, that's why like I was glad you broke that, where I was like, yo, let's go get food. And then we ate food together, listened to music. And then I was like, oh, this is good. This is a great place to start, because she's already had 15 drinks, water, coffee, beer. And then like it allowed me to be myself. And then I have to like take these walls down and be like Michael. And like, so like every step I've made in this business has been like me trying to be who I am. And that's why the business and the slogan and everything is like, it's who you are.
That's another thing that I really enjoy, that I'm getting excited about with having my own business. Is being able to work with people and like treating them like a friend. Yeah. Like making them feel comfortable, like being laid back, like enjoying the process. That's something I really want to like push forward on the business that I am starting, because I think that's important. Like, that builds loyalty in a brand and everything, but it's also something I love doing. Like, you're going to want to work with someone that treats you like a friend and cares about what you think. So I really want to bring that into the business.
I like the angle you're going with it, because like you know, the screen printer I work with now is like, he pays a company or a network a specific amount of money a month, and then it's connected to freelance artists. And then like, so if somebody needs a design made, he kicks it to this company that he pays a monthly fee to, and then they line up one of their freelancers, and then the freelancers get chosen for the correct job, and then it's almost like you've created an art department. So like, when you were talking about getting into like freelancing and doing that, one, I can definitely start funneling you business, and two, it's such a smart way of adding another tool and another income on top of what you're doing, because it's going to push you to do different art that you're not doing all the time. So that's going to start, it's going to start changing. Yeah, it's going to start changing the way you design. Like I just noticed the other week, like we went into test labs with cooking, and the last 3 have failed. And because of that, I thought I didn't know what I was doing. And here I was trying to be, I was at a point where my creativity was gone. And so I was just forcing it. And then I took a break. And
That's
then
rough.
we went back into the creative lab. Both of the things we made were a home run, but I took a month off. And then that's when I need to start paying attention to like, yo, you need to start going into the city. You need to go into Vegas. You need to start filling that up. And you need to start paying attention to when that comes down. Just like in life, how you have energy to work on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The creativity side of me and other artists who run off of creativity, when that's low, it affects this and it affects depression and all that. And then that's where I tell,
Yeah.
like, I'm done not being honest with people where I'm like, yo, like, I'm crazy. And like, I do all of this not for money, but to like manage mental health and all kinds of other stuff. And since I was a kid, I needed to do something creative. And I was never the one to be able to like comprehend and do stuff. So like my childhood and where things went, I needed to do this to get releases where my brothers were doing it by like actually comprehending and studying and getting grades and moving forward. Where like with me, it's like I have to pay attention to those meters now.
Yeah.
And for you, with being able to freelance like that, you're going to get thrown curveballs and it's that, and then so you're going to be able to actually keep your meter more at a balance.
I love working with like restrictions.
Yeah.
Any creative does. When you're like, hey, do whatever you want. You're like, don't say that.
Yeah.
Because your mind just goes out of control. But with the whole meter you're talking about, the one professor in college, Sue Jenkins, so smart. She made it like she made it known that she called it a well. Like you have to fill the creativity well.
Yeah.
And when it goes empty, it
You're
goes
fucked.
empty. Yeah. So she did go over that, which is awesome because you don't think like that would be gone over in
No.
class, but
It should be.
Yeah, and there was a part where it was a couple weeks where every morning you had to write 3 pages in a notebook. Like it didn't matter what it said though. She said it could be like repeatedly, like throughout the whole pages, because she knows that when the creative well is empty, you get depressed.
Yeah.
And the writing every day, it gets that junk out of your head. And then eventually when you get that out, you start being like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could do this today.
Yeah, it really opened my eyes when I went out
Yeah.
to Vegas. And when I went out there, it was like when I go on vacation, it's for a decompress. And with Vegas, it was the opposite because I didn't realize how low my meters were. And I've been running on empty and I've been like working with emotion and forcing things. But then that just creates arguments. And then you have to start working with people because you kind of need help. And then the more people you work with, if they're not artistic and they're just kind of there to kind of help things out, then that just starts becoming and building like awkward relationships. And then the more I just keep like centering on myself and just trying to like
a lot
do
of
this by
pressure.
myself and just try and work on this by myself, because it's never going to be never again until I do it the way it is. But I'm scared to do that. And when you're on empty, you start getting desperate and you start dating and doing different things and you start looking for love, and all that doesn't work because you're not looking for any of that. You're still just looking to be creative. And then when I went out to Vegas, my mom was like, how is it? And I said, I've never been more at peace because I've been that distracted. And
Yeah.
like the way my brain works, it's just boom, 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 boom. But when I went there and matched that with art, lights, people, sound, and it was just chaos. Where most people would go to Vegas and be like, I'm never fucking coming back here again. I've never felt more at home. I was completely, I just got off the plane and it was just like,
That's awesome.
because like I could go into Philly and I start looking at stuff, but there's construction and
Always.
that and all that, and there's graffiti, and I found my ways to just fill the meter. But it was the first time where if you take a well, it was just a fire hose and it was like whoop, and now it's going over, and I was just like, holy fucking
That's so
shit.
important.
Yeah, and then I didn't know that until I went home. Just like when I went on a vacation to decompress, my buddy's like, sit at the beach, sit at the beach, sit at the beach. And then when we sat there, hour 3, everything went boom.
Yeah,
And I was
can't
like,
do that either.
I was like, oh, I'm like, I needed to do this because I'm so fucking spun out trying to fill this goddamn well up of water where I'm driving my fucking self crazy. But I need to, which is why I'm in the position where I'm at, is because I can't be locked in a fucking goddamn deli being told I got to work fucking 12 hours a day, or I got to be stuck at a screen
It
printing
kills you
plant.
slowly.
It does. And like for somebody who realistically, if you don't get out of those situations, you start getting into suicide and you start getting on fucking medication and you start going down roads that you didn't know you'd be on, and now your life's just all fucked up because you got all kinds of weird fucking side effects from the pills and you don't know how to handle it, and there's all this fucking shit going on. And if you don't pay attention to, like, you need to get the fuck away to shut all the noise off. The other day when I was telling you how I was driving around looking for somewhere to work because I couldn't work in here anymore, I went over to my parents' house and they just put on an all-season room, and they were not home. When they're not home, best time to be at my parents' house. So I sat in the back room, and it was the first time I sat down and I could just work. Because it's not that I can't work in here. It's that I'm just being distracted by things.
You need windows.
Yeah, so like I'm being distracted by like noise and things, and I'm just not paying attention. Yeah. And then when I got up there, I was like, oh, I needed silence. And sometimes you need silence, and sometimes you need noise, and you need those two balances to equal out creative freedom.
Yeah, I've noticed like in the past, the best times where like I'll create the things that I have the most fun with is because just have silence.
Yeah.
And just less. And then I'll like eventually be like, well, now I want to create because there's not all of this, the distractions.
And I never understood what they meant by distractions, but they're things that are distracting you because you don't want to sit down and work. And it's like, that's how I was always in high school, where it was just like, oh, I don't want to fucking do this. I don't want to fucking do this. Where now I look at it where I was like, I was just in the wrong atmosphere. I was being distracted by people, and there was too many things that I knew I could do to get myself out of the work. And then that's a whole nother fucking monster to deal with. But when I went back into their season room, and it was just calm, and there's fucking windows everywhere, and there's birds chirping, and I was like, now I get why people would like rent a cabin to go write. It's not because they need that to go write. They need to get the fuck out of where they are so they can think, because when you start creating and building something like fashion and all that, in the beginning, it's really easy because it's just, you're overloaded. But when all that's gone and you don't know how to get any of that back, you're just kind of like stuck. And then now you're trying to figure out how to channel that, which isn't channelable because you're fucking crazy. So then it's like, so then you're just like stuck sometimes. So then it's like, but then it's like, I'll go down to the beach and I'll calm down and I'll have a couple of fucking drinks and I start seeing surf stuff.
And then you're ready.
For the last 5 years, I've been wanting to put out a full surf line. Just drop a summer line and do beach shirts and do fucking shit like that I see down at the Outer Banks, but turn it into Never Again. And I'm going to do that. I haven't had the time, but like, I took all that in a time when I just wanted to creatively think, and I was like, oh, I should get into like 70s fucking swimsuit trunks for guys and do like the fucking, like the fucking umbrellas you put up with the stripes, and do like a weird like Mary Poppins beach vibe thing. But I like, that all comes from me just sitting somewhere high because I can think. I can't think down here because all that's down here is the chaos of constant work.
Yeah, and it's routine.
Yeah.
Like,
fucking hate routine.
Routine is my friend, but routine is also not my friend.
Yes.
Like, when you get too comfortable, which I was in my last job, you just get into this depression.
Yep.
And you get into this
the gray area.
Yeah, where like, well, nothing's possible. What's the point of doing anything?
Just doing the motions.
Yeah. So really, like, the last couple weeks here, so recent, but like, I'm starting to feel like I could do it.
Yeah.
Like, again, because coming out of this job of 6 years,
you're breaking the pattern, behavioral patterns. I'm a big person with behavioral patterns. Eventually, when I write a book, and there's a lot that I want to do to try and help people, and I don't care if 5 people read it and one of them get help, but like, there's a lot of stigmatisms and a lot of things that people don't talk about, and they label them onto other things, and then they, my uncle was Irish, so I drink, and I'm like, no, this is just behavioral fucking patterns. That's how it is to me, and I feel like if you look at it from a behavioral pattern, and I'm somebody who was sober for 10 years and went back to drinking and became more successful after he became drinking again because I found balance in my life. And like, my balance isn't all the time. I definitely black out and do stupid shit and have to send an apology text. But what the difference is I know that that's wrong because I stopped doing that. Yeah. So like, behavioral patterns and all that kind of stuff and breaking it, like, that was when I stopped drinking. That was the first major thing where like, I completely rocked my whole fucking world. I was drinking since I was 13. I was fucking smoking weed, doing whatever else, doing all this dumb shit with my friends, constantly talking about doing shit, never doing it because it was a bunch of fucking kids in a small town and nobody wanted to take the risk or try and do it. And, oh, well, I'm going to pharmaceutical school. I got a serious girlfriend. I'm going to go have kids. And then it left me with like, well, what the fuck am I going to do? Yeah. And when I quit drinking, I was like, well, if I quit fucking drinking, that's going to shake everything up because I only hang out with people who drink. And then you lose your friends who are just there to get fucked up. And then I grew, you know, my core family of like my actual family that I got back. And then I got my friends that like were my real friends. And then like my whole life changed and I grew up. I became a man. I started a business. Like, you know, I had a lot of things going on. And like in that time, I grew up, I learned a lot, I started a business, but there was a part of me that like needed to break that pattern in order to grow to be who I am now.
That's the thing.
And that's the stuff nobody talks about is like the counting the days and going to meetings. And I ain't telling you to do any of that shit now. I'm just saying like you got to do some serious work before you get to a point where you want to be that person. But I can't be Michael because Michael wasn't supposed to be sober his whole life. Like there was a part of me that did, but I got up every day and was like, all right, well, if I do 10 push-ups every fucking day, how am I supposed to get stronger? Well, why don't we try and use the tools that I learned? The same thing if you went to college and didn't use any of that shit and were too scared to become a screen printer, you wouldn't be who you are as a person.
And that's the thing about like breaking those molds because so you say you weren't doing much, whatever, and then like you land a good job and you're good at it, you're working at it, and you think, this is something good I'm doing. It takes a lot more after that to be like, I could be doing better.
Yeah.
Because the contrast isn't as high.
Especially when everyone else is like, you're doing the best you can. And I'm just like, well, I don't want to do this. Isn't the best for me.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I don't think so.
Dating sucked being sober.
Yeah.
Sucked. And then I remember I shared a glass of wine with a girlfriend at the time, and it was normal. And I didn't die. But, like, you know, I mean, I definitely then went out drinking with my friends a couple weeks later, and it was a nightmare. Like, I woke up, my dog was in the hallway, my glasses were broken in half. I cannonballed the hood of my Mercedes I was leasing.
See, that kind of stuff gives me crazy anxiety.
But then I was like, well, what are you going to do? You want to count days again, or you want to put this as your line that you shouldn't cross? And I kept moving the line. And now it's like if I get drunk and I'm hungover, the line moves again. And then now it's to the point where I'm like, I don't even really like, I drink with my friends, but it's like, you know, and sometimes I get fucked up, but it's like, I don't enjoy that at all. It cost me 5 days. Then it starts costing me my business. Then it starts costing me money. And when I move into that restaurant and shit,
it's not worth it.
My whole life's changing again. I mean, everyone thinks I'm crazy for getting up at 3 a.m. My whole life's going to change, but it's a whole new part of me where I'm here right now. And if my dreams are so goddamn big, what's the choice now? All right, well, we started doing drugs at 13. Then at 28, we flipped the script on that. Then, you know, then at 37, 38, then I decided that I didn't want to do that shit anymore. And I know now that if I flip the script, but if I keep that timeline smaller, nothing but better things are coming down the road. All right, well, I'm not going to wait till I'm 53. Well, all right, well, at 43, I'm flipping the whole fucking thing over again. Now I'm going to get up at 3 a.m. I don't got time to get fucked up. I'm running a new business. I'm making money. This show's now going to be bigger because I have more confidence. I'm still doing apparel. I'm going to go out to Vegas and do magic. Like, I'm so close to doing all the things I wanted to do at 28, but I needed to restart so many times. You cannot stay on that same, that's for me or for an artist or somebody who's creative and you're building off a passion and you're not just there as an investor and you're making money off of somebody else. Or if you have like a regular business where you're like cutting lawn or something like that, I'm sure you're just kind of changing a couple of things. But to tackle what I want to tackle, which is get my fucking clothing line into a mainstream store, run a fucking restaurant and do Action Bronson shit, you got to move the fucking level. I can't just sit in this basement. Right. Sometimes, what are you moving for? What do you mean, what am I moving for? I've outgrown this place. I don't want to do this again.
And don't slow yourself down.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. Like, people will just say these little comments.
Yes, and they add up. And it drives me crazy.
And it's like, because you could take that comment and, like, really make sense of it. And, like, not to your own benefit, though. Like, because you'd be like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying, but really no, like you don't stop yourself.
My biggest thing is like I'll tell people I'm doing that, and they'll be like, how are you getting the money to do all this? And I want to be like, I've never talked to you about money. I didn't ask how you bought a house. I didn't ask what your income is with your wife. I didn't ask how much it costs to feed a baby. I didn't ask how you get to do all this shit. I don't ask that stuff. Why is that any of your business? Is like, so you can't see a reason that I'm going to fail, so then you're going to you want to bring up debt?
I think a part of it sometimes, is maybe a hint of jealousy or regret with people, or like, I don't know, just longing.
You know what it also probably is, now that we're talking about it, because I don't ever talk about this stuff out loud unless it's in therapy or it comes up naturally like this, but like, it's a reason why people don't do stuff.
Yes.
It's a reason why
it's easier.
Yes, it's easier to be like, I'm not getting in $100,000 worth of debt than taking a risk of creating something that will work because they're afraid that it's not going to work. And when people think that way, I don't ever think that way. I don't think about money. I use money to keep going on projects. I use my money to pay my bills. And if I have to keep needing money, like right now, I'm like, I'm okay. I took a couple of jobs, made some pretty good money, and it's in the bank. But then I'm like, I'm bored. And then I'm like, oh, we can make money. And I texted Gina, and I'm like, Christmas is coming up. You want to make money so you get more presents for your kids? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, cool, let's make money. But now I know how to make money. But I also know how to make money before I'm investing in a business that's going to make me a lot of money. So it's like, sometimes I don't think people understand like the ladder you're climbing up with this shit, because they're at a job where they're making money for somebody else and getting a fraction of it.
That's the thing. It's like, how do people think businesses come to be?
Yeah.
How do people think people create these relationships with businesses that kind of they rely on? Like, businesses just don't pop up miraculously.
Yeah.
There's people who have to make sacrifices and leaps, and good people. Like, that's what it's about. Like, creating connections with
networking.
Yeah. And like just caring. Yeah,
you have to give a shit. And like, I think a lot of it too is like, there's so many aspects of it, but like, you know, when I talk to people and people who are like struggling to get a business together, or they're just at the start of building it, or, you know, where I'm in kind of like this transition stage. So it's a lot of passion and a lot of like, you know, I may sound like I'm pissed off at people, and I'm not. I'm just like very passionate about like opening up. But it's like you get into these areas where like you start having conversations with people, and it's really similar with everybody. And when you were like, hey, well, you know, I'm going to go to that freelance, and I'm like, oh, that's an avenue for freelance. And immediately I was like, oh, I can send her clients as well, and then that's going to help her grow. And then I'm like, then the more we kept talking, I'm like, oh man, like there's so much networking that I can funnel towards her, and I don't want anything out of it because I'm in the same position where you are, where you're taking something that you love and you cherish and you're growing it, and you're trying to make it what you do for a living. And 99.9% of everyone who comes on here is struggling and being passionate about one, being who they are, and then turning that into a business. And it's really fucking hard.
It is so hard.
And most people don't try and do it.
Just recently, like, I've been wanting to do my own business for like a while now, but I was struggling with like, what message am I trying to send?
Yeah.
They say, write your mission statement. I'm like, oh, fuck you. I
didn't understand my mission statement till last year.
Yeah. But then once you do kind of realize it.
It's like an elevator pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I went to that thing yesterday, you know, the guy's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, well, I was 28. I got sober, lived at a bar, dated a heroin addict, and started a clothing company. And then like, that's how it started. And then it's like, you know, now it's like I'm far enough along where I can tell you the story, and it can get to a point where it makes sense. But I couldn't tell that story until it went far enough to where the story made sense. So if I was just at my podcast stage, I'd say, oh, I created this and that. But like out of the podcast came the food, and now the food came a restaurant, and now we're at a tangible thing. I can't explain to you my life and how I make money because most people don't understand it. If I tell you I'm at a point where I'm building a TV studio and a restaurant, people are like, success.
Yeah.
This makes sense. Now you can relate that to somebody because most people don't. Everyone at there understood what I was talking about. But if you take somebody who's not creative and they're just in a 9-to-5 and they have a regular life and I don't care, that's what they do, your story ain't going to make sense until you tell them. You know, when people say the most about me is when I tell them that I didn't realize the finish line was till I had freedom. And then people get that because they understand that. But until I understood that, I can't write a book. I can't sell you on that idea. I can't tell you. I always said never again, it's who you are. I don't even know what the fuck that meant when I said it.
Yeah.
I just meant I was trying to get somewhere, but now I bring people on, and then when I started doing the podcast solo, that's what it turned into, is this conversation for the last 48 minutes is you. It took an hour to get here, but we're showcasing you.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do that. I know how to do that now, and it naturally happens most of the time, but this is just the natural progression of never again. It's who you are. That was from 28. I'm 42. That's a long fucking time.
I mean, that's what it takes to be.
But you have to be obsessed with it. Why? What is this? What are we doing here? Why is this not making sense? And a faster route to anybody who's listening and trying to do something is you have to make it relate to somebody who's not relating to you. I can sell you this business every day because you can think this way, but we're a small percentage of people. The rest of it are all the consumers and the buyers, and that's who's buying your shit, and you have to sell them a message. And the first time that clicked, and as stupid as it sounded, is when I used to watch UFC, and they would run the 45-minute video the week before, and as soon as that video was over, I was like, let's go. I'd texting my friends. I'm like, I'm buying the pay-per-view. I don't fucking care. It's $85.
Yeah.
You sold me on a movie.
That's
you
awesome.
sold me the story of two people fighting.
Yeah.
You sold me on the story of comeback. You sold me on the story of an underdog. The skill set and all that I understand because I've been watching it long enough. But what I bought it for was they moved me with emotion, and then I was like, you got to sell people with emotion, and you can't connect to somebody with emotion unless they emotionally understand it. And if you can't put that in English, because we're speaking Spanish, it's always just been going like this.
Yeah.
And then now it's slowly becoming like this, and I'm like, I think I fucking got it. And
it's beautiful.
It's been so long, I don't fucking care about the money. I'm just trying to explain to people what the fuck I've been doing.
Yeah. And
it's the hardest part.
I know. I'm in the process of, there was this alumni creative story form that you could fill out. That one of my professors sent me, and I keep like delaying me filling it out because I'm like, I have nothing to say. Like I haven't really accomplished anything. Like I get down on myself, and I'm and like compared to the other people, like my other classmates are like working for this so-and-so company and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. Like, but now it's kind of cool. I'm coming into the realization that my story's happening now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of empowering. And I need to ride that wave instead of like...
I call it lanes. And I tell people, I said, when you get in a lane and it's working, you run. Because it's going to stop. You're going to hit a wall. And if you don't pay attention that you're into a lane, and it's why there's so many things going on. It was Apparel. Apparel worked, but it wasn't working. So then I went to radio. Radio worked. And it was working, and then I went till it wasn't working. Not in the sense of like I wasn't able to do anything with it, but it's just I needed a break. And then I took a break, and then I did food. And then I was like, oh, we're in another lane, and money's coming in. And then now it's like this whole thing evolved. And when you find that lane, stay in it and run. And run like...
And don't give it any too high of expectations.
No, I picture it as like you're just in a field, and it's nice out, and you just run straight. Run. Forrest Gump, run until you hit that fucking wall, because you're going to hit a wall.
And it's okay.
Yeah. Because when you hit the wall, then now you have to figure it out. All right, which way do I want to go? And that's the thing is like, if you stay in front of that wall too long, you're not going to go anywhere. Like you were at that job for 6 years, and I'm sure you look at it and you're like, man, I should have probably left after 3.
Yep.
And that's how I was with my sobriety. But then when I left them, now I look at like how much I'm learning, and I'm like, oh, it's like my life's running parallel to my sobriety now, because like I'm seeing all these positive things that I learned from that, but I'm now applying it here. So I'm like, man, I can't wait till I have 10 years not sober, because this is going to line up, and I'm going to be using so many positive things from here to balance so many positive things from here. And that's how you create balance. You don't create balance from just doing one thing over and over and over and over again. You have to do multiple things. So when you hit that wall and you find fucking balance, you can either start building another business, you can start building another way to your business, you can start building around your business, you can start creating things with other people. And for the first time in my life, when I wanted to partner with the food thing, like Jer was like, yo, I don't want it to be anything never again. And I didn't take that personal. I was like, no, I don't want it to be never again either. And he's like, let's just do our own thing over here. And now I'm freely creating with family to me, and it's beautiful.
And you
then
can still connect the two.
Yes, and then now I can take this over here and I can promote the shit out of this by using my network. I can get everything done that we need to get done because I have so many resources. And then in the evening, I'm just going to sell my cheeseburgers in the same building. And
sounds
I'm gonna
like a party. That's awesome.
But then I can use that money, the extra money from the burgers, to pay the loan off or to pay the rent. And I'm just like, well, now I'm taking this thing over here and just selfishly using it over here to grow something that we're doing. And that took a long time of like being able to put down your art tools and go to another person's table and learn to create with them. And then even that thing yesterday, it's like I'm in a room with people and the whole time I feel like I shouldn't be here, but I'm just like, no, I should be here. Because I texted my one friend. I'm like, this is way serious. People are wearing suits. I got my fucking hat sideways. Look like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm like fucking, and she's like, stop it. You're supposed to be there. Act like you're supposed to be there. And then when I did that, I was like, yo, fuck that. And I went up to everybody, was like, yo, you want a podcast? And everyone was like, fuck yeah. And I was like, but like now it's like I met 6 people who are also doing fantastic things. Now they're all going to come on the show. Now I'm going to network with all of them. And it's like sometimes you just kind of like have to leave your shit at the door, whether it's your insecurities, your self-doubt, your depression.
Because if it doesn't work out, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
I don't care if somebody doesn't want to come on here.
You just had like a couple hours like that you didn't like.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a fine time. It's not like even...
I went to get pizza afterwards.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I got good pizza.
Yeah, so that's a win in general. But like, I feel like there's no, like, doing things like that. Like, there's always a benefit.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, just throw yourself into it. Say yes once in a while. I mean, I say yes too many times.
Yes.
But yes.
Yes.
But to things that scare you. I mean, you learn about yourself as time goes on. You learn if actually you should say yes or not. But if a reason for saying no is not good if it scares you. No. Like, that's a better reason to say yes.
Yeah, like when they sent me the email on that shit, I didn't know what to do. Yeah. I was like, man, I've been like... I haven't been a fan of wanting to be involved with anything like that. I've always been like I've got my shine on some things and like it's gone viral a couple times, but like for the most part, like locally, nobody ever really fucked with it on like a real level. And like friends of mine were connected to it and they brought me up to be nominated. And then when they looked into what I was doing, that also changed my perspective as I took it as like, why don't they notice me? Then I realized that like they just didn't. There's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of different people going on. There's a lot of
ways
people.
To look.
Yeah, so I was just like, well, maybe you should stop taking everything so seriously because it's affecting your work and your creativity and just work and your open freedom that you created and stop worrying about other people's shit.
Yeah. Usually, if you do what you love and show, like for a creative, like graphic designer, whatever, if you show on your Instagram things you like doing, even if they're not real projects. Like, if you put out that you're doing things and doing what you love, it'll come to you.
Yeah.
And that, like, relates to any field anywhere. Like, do what you like and that you're good at, and it'll just come back to you.
100%.
Don't put out in the world, hey, I did this job, but like I really hated that. Please don't post that. Even if it came out good.
I think that's what Facebook's for.
Yeah. But even if
I can't believe people are still on there posting their lives. I said to a friend of mine, I said the people left on Facebook are the people who still overshare. And I said the reason why kids aren't on Facebook anymore is because you were oversharing. So like kids aren't hip to it that are growing up because they don't want to see any of that shit.
Good.
They don't care about that. They don't care about your dog, your goldfish, your kids. They don't care about any of that shit. And that's why it's kind of like this, it's like this giant Titanic boat going off into the sunset with just people who are just like dumping way too much information about their life on there. It's like I posted I don't share too much personal shit anymore. I did yesterday just because I was moved to, but like other than that, I don't share shit like that on Facebook. I don't post on Facebook. My Instagram goes there.
Yeah, I don't post on Facebook unless it's
I think in
shared
3 years,
from my
nobody's
Instagram.
posted. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
reason why they're bringing the Meta on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because the kids will go to that because it's going to stop posting.
Right. I mean, because they know they can't stay stagnant.
No.
Like, you need to change to
Oh,
keep
yeah.
with it. So, yeah, like, I mostly just post on Instagram, which I need to post more. 'Cause
It's tough. I post. It's a fucking job.
Yeah.
It's a fucking job.
Especially, like,
I can't
when-
wait to get an intern. I just
Yeah.
want help because like what I need posted is like purchase posts. I post creatively because I enjoy the release of posting
Mm-hmm.
creative stuff, whether or not it gets likes or anything. I like creating and I like posting. I've always liked sharing my stuff.
Yeah,
What
well,
I
that's
need
good.
is for somebody in between to be like, buy his t-shirt. Like somebody be in the background, be like, yo, by the way, this lunatic is also selling stuff. You should
Yeah.
probably buy it.
I don't know
'Cause
if
when
you know this, but I do freelance and I do social media.
I didn't know you do social media. I need help with social media.
Yeah.
There was a girl locally I hit up in town, and I was hoping it would work out, and then it still hasn't. It still hasn't
even
gone.
if you have like the creative post, because I mean, I have creeped on you because I like to do my research.
Yeah.
Like that part's good. But yeah, like you said, doing like, hey, I also have things you could buy if you want to.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of stuff I thrive at because it's design in a way, has to be easily read.
Yeah.
And like attention getting and stuff, like all that kind of stuff. But that stuff is easy to do because you have a goal, you have what you're working with, and to make it just look good for a post, like that's just so easy for me.
Yeah.
I love doing that kind of stuff.
No, we'll talk. I got to wrap this up because you got to get to your dog, and we are hitting on 2 hours.
My dog.
2:30 by the time I get you out of here. You'll be a half hour late, but I do not want you any later, and we
My
will
new
not stop
dog.
talking. I want to thank you so much for coming on. You've been a plethora of information. Your story's awesome. I can't wait to see how much further you grow.
Yeah, me
I
too.
will definitely 100% talk to you about the help I need with my social media. And once we work on that, then I can start feeding you clients. There's a
Yes.
lot of people who come in here, they need help with social media. They need help with web design. They need help with branding. They need
do
help with
all
all
of
that.
that.
So I can kind of start picking and weeding to what people need, and then I can start funneling it to you, so it'll be another resource
That
of
would be
the
beautiful.
network, and that's kind of how naturally this happens. Thank you again for driving here.
Yeah.
I appreciated actually like hanging out, and because this is not work, it's work until we get to where we are now. But like when you were like, I need to be fed, I was like, okay, and then I was like, fuck, I'm such a bachelor. There's like there's beer, there's mac and cheese from Thanksgiving I didn't throw out yet, and that's about it. And then
You had chips.
I had
They were
chips. They were
delicious.
from a pop-up. And then
Yeah.
I was like, I should probably fucking feed her, because then my mom kicks in and she's like, what are you doing? So then I was like, yo, do you want to go down to Wrestlers? And that was such like a hang. That was like a
Yeah.
normal fucking hang. And that's what made this show and the last hour so much better than anything I've done in a long time. And I'm
Yeah.
growing as an interviewer. And the other thing too is I took a long break, which I needed. But I want to give you the chance to plug your Instagram or anywhere anybody can find anything you need, and then I'll get you out of here because I know you're on a time crunch.
Sure. So you could find me on Instagram. My handle is Panther Puke, Panther, like the cat, and puke as in vomit, Puke. You could go on there to kind of view my apparel, and then all my links are on there. Like ashleycouillat.com is a good way to look at my portfolio and get in touch with me. You could also email me at happypantherco.com at gmail.com if you have any questions on branding, or if you're looking to get t-shirts or business cards, literally anything. I could at least give you advice on it if I can't do it, and shoot you in the direction you need to go. And I'd love to work with you.
Cool. I already have a client that you can do off the bat who's looking for business cards, and he needs some artwork done. So I was going to push it through Kyle's art thing, but I'll do it through you just because it's still, the screen printing will still go back to Kyle. First time listeners, first time watchers, I'm glad I had the conversation we should have had after the show during the closing. First time listener, first time watcher, it's neveragainstudio.com. That has everything that I have on there. There's apparel on there. There's the videos on there. The clothing's on there. I already said apparel. I'm terrible at closing these out. If you go to my Instagram, that's fucking everything. There's a link tree in there. All my new apparel's on there. The North Face ripoff is on there. I should probably stop saying that out loud publicly while being recorded, is that I'm stealing clothing design. designs for people. Enough has changed on it that it should be fine. Check everything out. I'm not closing this any worse than I have. Thank you so much. This was an awesome time. We did 2 hours. I want to get you home to your dog, and you probably have to use the bathroom because you had 65 drinks.
Yes, thank you.
Goodbye. Then I say goodbye. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
I'm the worst at...
Never Again Radio. Get into it, brother.